You're listening to Sacks in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sacks in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at sacksinthebasement.com. All right, before we kick anything off, I want to remind everybody about the current contest that's going on here that Sacks in the Basement has. A Reynaldo Lopez autographed White Sox hat, and you only have to do 3 things, but you have to do all 3 of them to be eligible to win. And we're going to draw a winner next week on the program, so you still have a week to compete. Here's how you do it. 1, you have to follow one of our social media pages. At Sacks in the Basement on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. 2, you have to like our show in whatever player that you're listening to. Go in there and give it a rating and a review.
You actually meaning you have to give it a like on your social media platform of choice. You don't actually have to like the show, like as in like it, but you can just, if you give us a like button.
I want you to follow it on one of the social media platforms, and then what I want you to do is go and review the show and give it a rating. All these players, these podcast players, Stitcher Radio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of them, they give you the ability to rate the show, the program as a whole, and write a review. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
I want you to do that. And trust me, it's going to be very hard for you to win if it's a low rating. Okay? But you go and you put that in there. So now you've got your rating, you got your review, you've got your social media follow, and then what I want you to do is on one of those social media sites, I want you to share the show with your followers, your friends. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So this is what I want. You're spreading the word and you're supporting the show. And by doing that, somebody's going to win an autographed Reynaldo Lopez hat. Now,
what do listeners who have no friends do?
I don't know. Everybody's got a friend.
What if there's some like diehard White Sox fan? And he loves the show. He listens every week and he downloads us. He likes us, but he has no friends. What does that guy do?
Make friends.
Oh.
Okay? Send me a picture of you holding up a sign like on a street corner that says, listen to Sacks in the Basement. Show me that you try to promote it in some way. Okay? When you go to opening weekend, show me you out there doing something to promote the show, and I'll take that. You don't use social media. I'll take that.
Isn't that what you do on your spare time? Like in a street corner, you're just out there?
Right next to the guy that will work for food, and then it's me, and it'll be like, please listen to my show. Spare some change. That's kind of what I do. Okay, Reynaldo Lopez did not have, I think, the start that he wanted. Neither did Carlos Rodon. Neither did his whole team.
No.
They've stumbled coming out of the gate. Couple of quick observations before we jump into things. Oh, and by the way, Ron Kittle on the show here in just a little bit.
Oh yeah, by the way, to bury the lead, Chris.
I was excited about the hat. Ron Kittle on the show.
You're busy getting ready to rearrange the deck furniture on the Titanic. And oh yeah, well, by the way, Ron Kittle.
Okay, Ron Kittle's going to be on the show. I have some interesting questions. I want to ask him about the team. I want to ask him about his impressions of the team. I want to kind of dive into a little bit of him as a manager. Remember, he was a minor league manager, and try to get into the psyche of our current manager because I'm confused by some things. But here are some observations.
Confused is putting it mildly.
Just from the start of this as we get ready for the home opener. Oh, and I'm also going to talk to him about home openers because the guy's had a lot of home openers in his life, okay? So we're going to get into all of that. First off, what did I say when this season started? The most important guy on this team was Yoan Moncada. So it's hard for me to be completely angry about the start of the season when I'm watching the guy go out there, make contact, be aggressive at the plate, widen a strike zone when necessary, still have the eye to be able to draw a walk every once in a while, clutch hitting a couple of big hits so far. And you know what? I know that he's double clutching at third base while he's playing the position, but you have to give the guy some sort of a pass. You can't loop him in with guys that have played other positions at a major league level at this point and are making errors. He's in a new position, essentially. I mean, I know he's played some third base, and I think that that's probably where he's going to end up being a better player, and he has shown flashes of brilliance already. one or two plays over there where he has made some really nice plays at third. And I think that this is going to work out. And it kind of needs to, because every single day I open up my Twitter feed, my whatever feed I'm looking at for my baseball news, and I see another big free agent that was supposed to come free next year or in 2 years that's been grabbed up by their own team.
Look,
and the White Sox are missing out just because of the fact that the baseball market has changed,
and they're cheap,
and they missed this wave. They didn't see this happening. I don't think a lot of people saw it happening,
and they're cheap.
Things are changing. Okay, I have no problem with Tim Anderson's bat. I have a real problem still with his defense. I think that Yolmer Sanchez is a hole in the order and at second base right now. And I'm looking at Marwin Gonzalez through the beginning of his season. Remember, I was saying we should have gone and gotten this guy.
Yeah.
And you look at not only his overall stats through his career, but you look at what he's doing right now for the Minnesota Twins. And I still beg the question, who is getting blocked by bringing in Gonzalez this year? Because Madrigal is still in single A. So who is getting blocked that you couldn't have had? I mean, because right now your 9 and your 1 spot are holes in the order. There's no production going to come from them all year.
There's a lot more holes in the order than that.
Right away, though, the first thing off the top of your head has got to be that there's nothing at 1, and I don't like seeing Moncada at 1 because I like him at the 2 spot.
No, because
I like him with Abreu right behind him and protecting him. Go ahead, Dave. You come right in and you're ready to yell, and I'm trying to at least set a base here because there are some things that look. I like my 2 through 7 batting order. Even though Palka started off slow,
I don't have the batting order. I don't have the batting order.
I'll list it off for you because guess what? The starters for the first 3 games are clearly the guys that the manager, Ricky Renteria, saw as his starters, his main team to start this season. Leury Garcia leading off in center field. Yohan Moncada at third base, batting second. I like that. Abreu batting third. He's playing first, of course, and switching off at DH at first with Alonso, who's batting fourth. And Alonso's a professional hitter sitting behind him. Okay, he's not a superstar, but he's at least a professional hitter. Eloy Jimenez sitting in the 5th spot, looking like he's having a blast playing baseball. I love his attitude. I think his batting stance is weird, but I think this guy is going to still come along and have a really solid rookie year. Okay, and then your 6th spot is Palka, who it looks lost, but it still makes sense to have him sitting there. And Anderson is in your 7th spot. 8 is your catcher, and they're basically what a catcher should be. If you combine their stats, it's not the worst thing in the world what they're producing right now early on in the year. But your 9th spot then is Yolmer Sanchez. And there's a hole at the leadoff position, and there's a hole with Sanchez. And I don't want them to try to cover these holes by moving guys like Moncada, who's going to benefit more by batting directly in front of Abreu. Go ahead. I know you can't wait.
Okay. Here's because there's a few things. You've got a few observations there that I have a few replies to. So I'm gonna try to go through this one at a time because you tend to talk a little fast. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna try to slow everything down.
I just feel like it's a half-hour show and we have Ron Kittle and you look ready to go, and I just see a 50-minute Sox in the basement.
Look. Okay. So Moncada, all right, very nice. Okay, very nice start. Looking good at third base. Here's my big problem with the Moncada thing. And it's nothing to do with him. Okay. Right now, anybody who isn't named Jose Abreu that's on this team right now, basically Moncada is surrounded by bums. And the thing that worries me, Chris, is this team has shown you time and time and time and time and time again that they are either unable or unwilling to actually build a team around franchise players. See Robin Ventura. See Frank Thomas. See Chris Sale. These guys are all generational talents, future Hall of Famers that wallowed in, mediocrity on the Chicago White Sox until, 1 year they got lucky and they won the World Series. They
tried to build in the 90s. They did. They tried to build in the 90s.
No, but listen, I'm not saying the effort. Don't confuse effort with accomplishment. I said either unwilling or unable.
I think it's unfair to sit there and say that with the exception of Abreu, surrounding Moncada is nothing but bums. Okay? Look, Eloy Jimenez is going to be a guy that's going to challenge for Rookie of the Year this year. I don't care that he started off slow and he's hitting 133 through the beginning of his week as we sit here and record this show. It's over 4 games when we're sitting here recording this show.
This is excluding.
He has talent.
So this is excluding. This is excluding Eloy because Eloy has had all of 14
I
professional.
know we're all
at-bats.
mad at Yonder Alonso, but he's not a complete bum. And when you're looking at a designated hitter,
listen,
and for what you're paying him, he's a professional hitter.
Yonder.
He's made some good plays with his glove.
Yonder Alonso. I've got bad news for you, Chris. Yonder Alonso does not want to play here. He told his best friend / brother-in-law / drinking buddy not to play here. And you know what?
He just told him he likes San Diego.
His stats reflect that.
It's at a 925 OPS right now.
Has a 182 batting average.
Forget batting average. When he's getting hits, it's mattering, and it's only over 4 games. He's getting hits that matter over 4 games, Dave. You're sitting there and you're going to harp on his batting average being 182? Come on, man.
Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement.
Good friend. I'm going to start calling you good friend because you've been on the show now more than once. Ron Kittle's on the line with us. Ron, how are you?
I'm doing fine on this lovely, chilly night.
Yeah, you know what? It's finally going to warm up, though, and I'm excited about that, and baseball is back. The Sox, I know nobody's sitting around thinking, here's a team that's going to make a playoff run. Nobody's really talking about them. They're like one of the last games that you see whenever MLB Network goes through what happened the night before. Even at the beginning of the season, they're one of the last teams they'll show highlights for and everything like that. That's where we're at right now. But I am excited. You had a lot of opening days. Is it still fun if you open someplace else and then you finally get home for your home opener? Does it still feel special when, even though you've been playing for a week into the season, you get home for that home opener?
Oh, absolutely. It's not often, but, you get home, you got your locker. It's like you're coming home to the family. You got your locker with all your extra spikes, your extra stuff into it, your mail. But, you got to think about, hey, we're coming off a road trip. It's time to focus on baseball again. And, unfortunately, I think it's supposed to be raining pretty much all day Thursday when they do come in, but it's still going to be, they're going to be glad to get home, and I'm excited for them to continue this season on.
This is why I bought tickets for Game 2. I was like, Game 2, it'll be nice and relaxed. Me and my father, we can just kind of stretch out. I'm sure there'll be empty seats on either side of us. It'll probably be beautiful. It's going to be on Saturday. I'm going to Game 2. I'm going to try out that Goose Island section that they have. That looks like there's a big giant goose out there for somebody to try to hit a ball off of. Would you aim for stuff like that if that was out in the outfield when you were playing?
Well, maybe in batting practice. In the game, you're just going up there to try to hit the ball hard and hopefully have some success with it. But, there's no doubt the White Sox have marketed themselves very well with these little doodads in the outfield, these little convenient beer vendor places. And, school's still in. So, the crowds are going to be slim early in the season because it is chilly. You got to wait for the weekends and some nice weather. And I think you picked the best tickets for Game 2 when they get home because the weather will be a little bit better. But I've been watching the games. They got some great talented kids. They can play. I don't call them kids anymore because they're men. And they need to be playing a little bit better. And really, so far, the mistakes they've made have cost them a couple wins. And they just need to get out of that routine.
Well, I'm one of the fans that will sit there and look. I wasn't 100% pleased with the offseason, but it is what it is. And so now this is the team that we have, and I'm looking at the development of players. Like, I feel like this is the year of Yoan Moncada. This is the year that I expect him to break out. If he doesn't, this is when I wasn't nervous last year. It was his first year. But I'm happy with what I'm seeing from him early on, and I can excuse a couple of double pumps at third base right now because the guy hasn't really played a lot of third base recently in his career. But this is where he's going to eventually be, and I believe he's going to come through on it. I look at a lot of the roster, and there's at least guys this year that I'm watching, and I'm going, these guys are core players for the future. But I had a question for you that I was thinking of this afternoon, and you used to manage. There are guys that every once in a while I'll look on Twitter or I'll look on social media or I'll talk to a friend of mine, and they'll be like, we've seen this guy now for over a year. This stat here, I don't like him because of this, I don't like him because of this. Why is the guy still playing? Do you, as a manager, did you ever look at players on your team when you were managing them, and it didn't matter what the stats were? You saw something there, and there was a reason you kept bringing them back out there and putting them out on the field because you felt like they contributed, and it didn't matter what the stat line was.
Absolutely. And I think that is probably a stat that every professional manager in any sport, not just baseball alone, feels that they're important to the team. You got a guy who runs well, you got a guy who plays defense better. Not everybody has 5 tools that's in the big leagues. I mean, you're probably talking maybe 1 or 2 players on each team. So everybody's got their individual talents. And, I always played my favorites, because I want the guy that hustles all the time. And I think Ricky Renteria wants the same thing. He wants the guy to go out there and give 110% on the field. Whether you're not great or not, you're going to have some success out there. And it's a spark plug to the other players seeing this. There's always a guy on the bench who wants to go out there and play, and he just may not be that spark plug, but he might be a key component from the 5th inning on, where you might need him as a pinch hitter, pinch runner, or defensive replacement. But you got to wait your turn. And like I said, I saw the guys at spring training. I read about them. I can read a box score and tell you exactly how the game's going to lay out. I kind of watched on the phone today when they were playing Cleveland, and you walk 4 people in the last inning, you ain't going to win. Nobody's going to win a ball game.
No.
And it wound up turning into a loss today. But, they definitely have a gifted little team.
Okay, so here's another question, and that goes to what we saw. And, it's such an early thing. Like, I'm not going to judge a team off for the first couple of games of the season, okay? I mean, it's great when a team jumps out hot, but sometimes they don't finish that way, and sometimes teams start off slow, and they start to put it together. And this is the kind of team where you've got a lot of guys, and it's going to take a while for everybody to hit on all cylinders. But one of the problems seems to be defense. I mean, I see a lot of just muffed plays out there early on. Now, these guys have been taking ground balls since they were kids. I mean, I got a couple kids that play Little League. They do defensive drills even now when they're 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. So they've been doing that their entire life. Is it possible as a coach to still find a way to coach a guy up defensively? Or is a guy pretty much what he is when he gets to the major leagues?
Oh, no. They have specialty coaches out trying to instruct them what they're doing right or wrong. Yomer Sanchez, one of my favorite players on the team. He brings excitement out there. He's got 3 errors so far this year. And I saw 2 of them live on TV, and he was trying to do too much. He caught a ball in between a hop, and that'll come in time. He probably would catch him, but he already made another error previously. So he was kind of shook up, and he was back on his heels a little bit. So, here's playing caution. You're going to make mistakes. You got to go out there, still be aggressive, and, you're going to make some errors. Unless you're somebody with a gold glove every single year, go out there and attack the ball. You've been doing it your whole life, and you're going to get better. I think also Yomer's not hitting the ball great, so if he got a couple hits, it's a different ball game. He's forgetting about his defensive plays while he's swinging good. So it's a mixture of both, but the coaches are there to help you. I mean, like I said, during the course of the year, you're probably taking maybe 10,000 ground balls. So you got to be pretty good to be up in the big leagues.
I would think so. Now, you went to spring training. You got an up-close look at Eloy Jimenez. You were a Rookie of the Year, and if you look at the Vegas odds to start the year, he's one of the guys up at the top that you can bet on who would end up winning the Rookie of the Year this year. There are people that are putting money down on this young man. Now, I don't know if they bet on that back in 1983 or if you ever got an inkling as the season was going on that maybe you had a chance at that or you were having a great year or if it mattered to you. But what's your impression of him? And do you think he's the kind of guy that if he would feel any pressure from something like that?
Well, I don't think he's feeling any pressure. He's a very talented individual. I mean, he's got all the tools. I saw him in AA All-Star game last year down in Birmingham. I saw him play. He can smash the ball. I mean, he was like a man among the boys. And, one of the people were critiquing him. I knew a lot of the scouts in the stands said he's a little lackadaisical in the outfield, but, it comes in time. He definitely thinks he's a big leaguer, which is really good. That's like an asset to your artillery right there, knowing that he belongs in the big league. He's going to get some hits. He's going to hit some home runs. As for Rookie of the Year, I never thought about it when I played. I went out there every day to be a hero, and I know you're going to be a GOAT way more times than you are going to be a hero, but the other people, let them worry about it. He needs to just play the game, and I think with the core of people that he's playing around or playing with, they're going to keep his head on straight, and I think he's going to have a pretty good season. and he's going to be one of those players who can make an impact really quick.
Before I let you go, Ron, I know that you were probably excited about it. We haven't talked since it happened, but it seems to me like you're good friends with Harold Baines, and he makes the Hall of Fame in the offseason in between the last time we talked and now. And I think you were on a trip with him, right? Like with the White Sox or something like that?
Yeah, we were out on vacation, and when he got elected, like I said, I've been with the guy since 1979. Him and I are just great friends. Does he belong in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. I mean, he's got the numbers. He's got the tools. He wasn't as flamboyant as other people who, got in a little vocal. He's the quiet guy. I was the loud guy, and he'll tell you that himself. But like I said, I'm excited for him. I mean, I probably know him better than my own brothers. And, like I said, I couldn't be more happier for him and his family.
Well, the thing is that after he got elected, I found myself standing in front of my television in my underwear in the morning, yelling at whoever was on TV, trying to tell me they weren't sure if he was a Hall of Famer. Like I got angry. Like I was like, what is this? And I'm glad that you guys were out of town when that happened, because at least he got a chance to enjoy it. Because I mean, your old manager Tony La Russa's on television, basically having an argument with that loudmouth Chris Russo, because he decides he's going to challenge Tony right there on live television as to whether or not Harold Baines should be in the Hall of Fame. And I think Tony handled himself really well in that situation.
Yeah, Tony did a great job on it. I think he put him in his place. Like I told Harold, I said, they can't take it away from you right now. But all those guys that had the banter about him not getting it, they were from other towns where they had their favorite players on other teams. And they wanted those guys to get in there, like Lee Smith. I mean, Lee Smith and I have been friends, when you play against each other in the minor leagues, then you go to the big leagues. Just because you're on an opposing team doesn't mean you don't like the guy. And, he should have been in the big leagues a long time ago also, along with Harold. But, I'm proud of both of them. They both deserve it. I think it's pretty good. And I'm looking forward to being Cooperstown there celebrating his plaque getting put on the wall.
Well, Ron, I really appreciate you coming on again. I'm hoping that this season provides some fun. I really think we're going to have a couple of guys come along and start to play pretty well. I'm really looking forward to the development of Yoan Moncada. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Eloy does in his first year. I'm really hoping that some of these young pitchers start to put it together more consistently, and I think it's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to get the wins that some fans want to have, but I'm excited about it. Okay, and maybe I'll get lucky and I'll bump into you at a game, because I think I owe you I got to get you a Sox in the Basement hat. I got a Sox in the Basement bottle opener. You can use that when you're in the backyard, and I probably owe you a couple of beers for coming on my show.
You don't mean nothing out there, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, talk some baseball, and anytime you're bored and all your other guests pass out and you need to talk to somebody, just give me a jingle.
Thanks a lot, Rod. You have a great one.
All right, you have a great night too. Thanks. Bye.
Hey, this is Acoustic Mike from Broadcast Basement, and you're listening to Sox in the Basement with Chris and his buddy Dave. I did the Broadcast Basement with Chris for 10 years, and nobody gave me a show. I'd leave if I had anything else to do with my life.
Remember, the Broadcast Basement is available everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at broadcastbasement.com. You can't do that. I would much more rather sit around and talk about the things that the team needs to look.
Okay, let's talk about the things the team needs to do. Okay, you need a second baseman because Yolmer Sanchez, bad. You need a shortstop because Tim Anderson, bad. You need a right fielder, Palka, bad. You need a center fielder, Adam Engel, Leroy Garcia, whoever they're putting out there,
Leroy
bad.
Garcia, you sound like my father. You're just making up names now.
Bad. For some reason or another, well, I know what the reason is, because Reinsdorf is paying him and he's cheap, and it doesn't matter that Welling Castillo is a drug cheat and he's basically useless out there.
He's hitting 500 over 3 games with a 1.278 OPS.
Yeah, with 4 at bats.
Okay, well,
with 4 at bats.
But you're the one that was all over Alonso for his 4 games.
I still have to look at Wellington Castillo, going out there trying to play. You have a hole at unless James McCann is going to play, 120 games you have a hole at catcher. Okay. The only place you don't have holes right now is first base and third base and maybe left field because we don't know what Eloy is going to do. So how are you going to fill those holes? What are you going to do?
I think you're the extreme in your anger. Here's my thing. You're right. There are things they should have done in the offseason. That is a valid point. I said it too. Imagine this team with Adam Jones and Marwin Gonzalez on it instead of what you have in center field and what you have at second base. I don't subscribe to the idea of we're in such a rebuild that we're supposed to suck at certain positions. See what I'm saying?
Well, because that's what's happening.
That bothers me because what you do is to a detriment of the other players on the team, you are now making their jobs even harder.
You better hope as a White Sox fan, and you better hope as if you're a member of the organization that you've got depth now. You have to have depth at every single position, at least 2 deep, besides what you have up in the minors. You have to have, the pipeline has to have 2 prospects deep at every position because you are not getting any free agents. It is not happening. If you are getting free agents, it's going to be like ancillary pieces. It's going to be role guys. You're not getting a free agent. You're not making a splash.
Okay.
So how are you going to fill these positions?
James Fox, who's going to be on the show next week, tweeted out this week an article. He retweeted an article from Fangraphs that breaks down, all the sabermetrics and, they're looking at scouting reports and everything else for players. And they did a basic thing showing future value of White Sox prospects.
Based on these
stats. Based upon all this stuff. Okay.
Right.
And it shows the Sox being extremely top heavy with Jimenez up at the top and Kopech up at the top, along with Nick Madrigal and Lewis Robert. Those guys are heads and tails above everybody else. You can put Cease and Dane Dunning. There's 6. After that, it goes down almost a tier, or like a half tier, to Mike Rodolfo, Luis Basabe, Blake Rutherford, Luis Gonzalez, and Zach Collins. After that, there's more of a drop. Guys start to become just basically their average minor league players. They haven't shown anything that they think that they could be major leaguer. You might get 1 or 2 to pop out of there like a Jake Berger, okay? But that's pretty much what they, at least with their data, are saying this is what the White Sox have in their farm system. So let's just think about this for a second, looking at the current roster. Jimenez is here, and Kopech's going to join the rotation. I'm sick of, and I'm going to bring this up with James Fox next week, I'm sick of hearing the Carlos Rodon should be a trade bait this year thing. You're going to have a hard time finding 5 good starting pitchers, and if he ends up being good, what did you save all this money for?
Right.
Just sign the guy to an extension.
Right,
but we'll talk about that. Maybe he's got a good reason for it. Okay? Kopech's going to join your rotation, and Madrigal's really your second baseman. It's clear. The White Sox see Madrigal as their second baseman. That's their reasoning internally, I'm sure, for not doing anything like going and replacing Yomer and putting this product out on the field right now because of Madrigal, a guy who's only in single-A ball now.
That should concern you.
Going into double-A, single-A into double-A ball.
That should very much that should concern you.
And then Robert is another one that you would assume eventually ends up in center field, but he's going to arrive probably after Basabe. Okay, but they're both going to be outfielders that are going to be in the field.
Robert's trajectory is 2020 at best.
Okay,
he's not going to be here until next year or the year after.
He'll be mid 2020, I bet.
Okay,
Dylan Cease will join the roster but towards the back end of this year. Okay, Dane Dunning, he's an injury machine, so who knows if we'll ever see him.
Right, yeah,
just take him off the list.
We read that, yeah.
So after you look at just the guys that are up at the top end, that Fangraph says are your guys, Chicago White Sox fans. Okay. Your left field and your center field should end up being covered eventually. Okay?
By Basabe
and Robert, you should be
Robert.
able to find one out of there. Let's not be completely negative. And according to what Fangraph says, one of them should produce you an everyday center fielder that'll probably be able to lead off.
I mean, assuming you hit on, what is it, like a third of your prospects? Right. I mean, is that kind of the benchmark?
Let's say that the White Sox end up with that in center field, and Jimenez turns out to be what everybody believes Jimenez is going to be in left field. Okay, even though he doesn't look very good defensively. And Madrigal is now your second baseman. That's your team right now. You've got your starting pitching is going to beef up with the addition of Cease and Kopech coming back. That's your team right now. You you don't have, I mean, even though Zach Collins and Zebby Zavala are supposed to eventually come up, don't expect them to be major parts of your
beaters,
team.
no, because they're pretty far down on that list.
And now, because of the way that free agents are being eaten up, you almost think that even though we thought it was ridiculous that Yonder Alonso would even make it to year 2 of this deal, that they wouldn't give him the at-bats. He might make it to year 2 because there's not a lot of options out there, and he doesn't cost a lot of money. Give me one thing that you liked about this week before we leave. One thing. One thing.
WrestleMania is this weekend.
What? No, not even Mancada. Not even a smile and pure joy that Eloy seems to be playing with. And he seems to really be playing with that. You know what the most telling thing about Eloy was?
Go.
Okay, so there's a situation in Kansas City. I think it was the 3rd game of that series. And relief pitcher comes in, and he can't find the strike zone. Okay? And Alonso walks right in front of Eloy. Now, Eloy's been having a problem with the slider since the first game. The Royals obviously were like, throw him nothing but straight sliders. He has a moment with the bases loaded to break a game open. A lot of rookies, and we've seen them over the years. I mean, Gordon Beckham would have just been swinging at everything, right? He would have just been trying to prove himself as a rookie, wouldn't he have? Okay?
Yeah.
He would have done that. There are plenty of guys that would have just, they wouldn't have handled that situation right. Even with strikes on him in the count, he took pitches and took that walk. So this guy has had such a hard time finding the strike zone. Meanwhile, here comes Palka, swings at the first pitch and hits into a double play. And the guy hadn't recorded a hit before, and at least to the point that we're recording this episode, hadn't recorded a hit since.
That's awesome.
And he swings at the first thing. That's the difference. That, you know, I hate to say something. I like Daniel Palka, but there's a difference in the talent and the baseball acumen of a guy like Eloy and a guy like Palka. And that makes me feel positive about Eloy Jimenez. It makes me feel positive about Yohan Moncada's week. I'm positive. I'm positive about what Lucas Giolito is doing because he's changed how he's pitching. He's changed his arm slot. He has a new perspective on what he's doing. He goes out and he pitches well. There are positives. There are things that I'm watching. There are things that I'm excited about. Just don't want to watch anything that goes to second base. Every time the ball gets hit to second base, I put my head down. I don't want to watch.
Another show isn't wrapped up. Another show's in the books. Another show isn't wrapped up. And then by the looks, it's going to be a good one. And we'll see you next week. And the nude is basement. And the nude is basement. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And it's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. Nude is basement. Broadcast basement. The nude is basement. The broad basement. Slancha. That was like Dropkick Murphys or something, right? I felt like it.
Dude, Anderson, listen, Chris, I've said it before. You know who Anderson is? He's Willie Harris.
No, he's
He talks
not.
a good game.
He's not Willie Harris. Willie Harris wasn't as good as Tim Anderson.
No.
Willie Harris wasn't as good as Tim Anderson. Willie Harris was terrible.
Tim Anderson is terrible.
Willie Harris was worse.
All
Willie
right.
Harris was
Next
worse.
week, I'm going to compare Willie Harris's stats with Tim Anderson's. Let's figure.
Just the way my memory works with Willie Harris and what Tim Anderson does.
Hey, listen,
I believe that.
Carl Everett said Willie Harris was the linchpin of that 2005 team, though.
Carl Everett doesn't believe in dinosaurs.
Socks in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on socksinthebasement.com.